I remember the day it all started like it was yesterday, the dry Montana wind whipping through the open windows of our family ranch office, carrying the scent of sagebrush and fresh hay. I'd been working for Harlan Ranch Enterprises since I was fresh out of college, starting as a lowly assistant in what used to be my grandfather's modest cattle operation. Back then, it was just a few hundred acres in the shadows of the Rockies. But under Grandpa Jack Harlan's vision, it grew into a sprawling empire: beef production, land development, even ecotourism ventures that drew folks from as far as California. He built it with calloused hands and a sharp mind, turning dirt into dollars while keeping that Western grit alive.
Me?
I was Emily Harlan, the quiet granddaughter who preferred spreadsheets over saddles. At 25, I sat in a cramped corner desk, surrounded by filing cabinets stuffed with deeds and contracts, while the louder voices, mostly men in Stetson hats and polished boots, dominated the meetings. They saw me as the token family member, good for fetching coffee or double-checking invoices, but not much else. Stick to the numbers, darlin', my cousin Derek Voss would say with a wink, as if my ideas on sustainable grazing were just cute hobbies. Derek had wormed his way in after marrying into the family, all charm and big talk, promising to modernize the place. Grandpa trusted him enough to make him operations manager, but I knew better. I saw the cracks early, the way he'd cut corners on feed quality to boost short-term profits, or how he'd schmooze investors at rodeo events while ignoring the ranch hands' complaints. I didn't argue back then. Instead, I watched. Silence became my ally in those wide-open spaces where words could get lost in the wind. During lunch breaks, while others chewed on sandwiches in the barn, I'd pore over the company's shareholder ledger at the local library in Bozeman. Grandpa had taken the ranch public a few years back to fund expansion, selling shares to outsiders but keeping family control tight. Or so everyone thought. I started small, using my meager salary to buy a handful of shares through an anonymous brokerage account. Nothing flashy, just enough to feel the ground shift under my feet. When market dips hit, like that rough patch in 2018 when beef prices tanked, panicked sellers dumped stock. I scooped it up, quietly, relentlessly. Nights were long. I drive home to my small cabin on the edge of the property, the stars overhead mocking my exhaustion, and cry into my pillow, not from defeat, but from the weight of patience. Why bother? Friends asked when I'd confide over a beer at the local saloon. The ranch doesn't value you. But I knew the truth. In the American West, ownership isn't about who yells loudest at the cattle auction, it's about who holds the deed. Grandpa taught me that before he passed. He wasn't just a rancher, he was a strategist, outmaneuvering land grabs and droughts with sheer will. In his final months, battling cancer in that old ranch house, he pulled me aside. "Emily," he rasped, his voice like gravel. "Titles are dust. Own the land. Own the future." He slipped me documents, a trust fund he'd set up, seeding my investments. It was legal, ironclad, drawn up by our family lawyer in Helena.
No fanfare.
Just a nod and a promise. Build it better.
So I did.
While Derek golfed with investors in Jackson Hole or partied at the stock show in Denver, I studied. I attended shareholder meetings virtually, notebook in hand, learning the bylaws like scripture. Montana corporate law was clear. Majority ownership meant veto power, board control, everything. By 30, I'd amassed 25% through careful buys, leveraging dividends to fuel more. The family drama simmered. Derek's marriage to my cousin fell apart in a messy divorce, full of accusations and alimony fights that echoed through family gatherings. He blamed everyone but himself, turning bitter. But Grandpa's will kept him in play as CEO after the old man died. The board, a mix of old ranchers and slick venture capitalists from Seattle, rubber-stamped it. They liked Derek's bravado, his talk of scaling up with tech like drone herding. But I saw the rot. Derek started firing loyal hands, guys who'd wrangled cattle through blizzards for cheaper labor. He ignored environmental regs, risking fines from the EPA that could cripple us. In meetings, he dismissed my warnings. Emily, honey, stick to the books. This is big boy business. It stung. But I filed it away, emails, memos, even recordings on my phone when talks got heated. Not for spite, but for leverage. Montana's whistleblower protections were on my side. I consulted a lawyer discreetly, building a file that could hold up in court if needed. One evening, after a brutal day where Derek publicly chewed out a foreman for a delayed shipment, I sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. The isolation hit hard, the family fractures, the undervalued work. But resolve burned brighter. I wasn't just buying stock, I was reclaiming a legacy. By 34, I hit 51%, then pushed to 90% when a major investor bailed during a market scare. The power was mine, but I waited. Timing, Grandpa always said, is the real wrangler. The ranch office buzzed with that false energy Derek loved, posters of gleaming tractors on the walls. A fancy espresso machine he insisted on buying with company funds. But underneath, morale was drier than a summer drought. I'd risen to financial analyst by then, a title that meant little in Derek's eyes. He treated me like a relic, a nod to family ties rather than talent. Emily's got the Harlan blood, he'd joke at barbecues. But let's leave the vision to me. His ego swelled like a balloon at the county fair, especially after he closed a deal with a big distributor in Texas, ignoring my projections that it overextended our water rights. I documented it all. In the West, water is gold, and Montana law is strict on usage permits. Derek's shortcuts, diverting streams without proper filings, could lead to lawsuits from neighboring ranches or federal crackdowns. I raised it in a staff meeting. Voice steady. We need to consult the state water board before expanding irrigation. He waved me off with a laugh. Relax.
Eminência.
I've got friends in high places. The room shifted uncomfortably. A few hands exchanged glances. Later, one veteran cowboy,
Tom,
pulled me aside by the stables. Miss Emily, he's runnin' this place into the ground. Why ain't you fightin' back? I smiled faintly. Sometimes the fight's in the waitin'. Tom. Family ties frayed harder. My aunt, Derek's ex-mother-in-law, confided over Thanksgiving dinner in the big house, roast turkey and all the trimmings, that she regretted bringing him in. He's poison, Emily. But the board loves his numbers. Those numbers were smoke and mirrors, inflated by one-time sales, hiding debts from risky loans. I knew because I crunched them nightly, cross-referencing with SEC filings. As a major shareholder, I had access, though anonymously through trusts. Legal? Absolutely. Grandpa's setup used blind trusts compliant with IRS rules, avoiding conflicts. The slights piled up like snow in winter. Derek reassigned my projects, like the sustainable feed initiative I'd pitched, to his buddy from college. In a team huddle under the big sky, he presented it as his brainchild. Great idea, right? Came to me on a trail ride. No credit. No glance my way. It burned, but I nodded politely, adding the slide deck to my evidence folder. Nights alone in my cabin.
E di pace.
Heart pounding with frustration. Why endure this? For the ranch? For Grandpa's dream of a legacy that sustained families, not egos. I confided in no one, but the emotional toll mounted, sleepless hours staring at the ceiling beams, questioning if silence was strength or surrender. Then came the audit push. Derek, paranoid after a minor IRS inquiry, ordered internal reviews but sidelined me. Emily, focus on petty cash, he snapped in his office, overlooking the pastures. His desk was cluttered with hunting trophies, a far cry from Grandpa's simple setup. I complied outwardly, but dug deeper, uncovering padded expenses, personal trips to Vegas billed as client meetings. Fraud. Plain and simple, violating Montana corporate statutes. I consulted my lawyer again, pro bono from an old family friend, ensuring my whistleblower status protected me under state law. Drama escalated at a family reunion rodeo. Derek, tipsy on whiskey, cornered me by the bonfire. You think you're smarter than me, little cousin? This ranch needs a real leader. His words slurred, eyes narrowed. I met his gaze evenly. Leadership's earned, Derek, not grabbed. He laughed it off, but the seed of doubt planted. Rumors spread among the hands, whispers of mismanagement, low pay leading to quits. One night, after finding a falsified invoice, I broke down, tears streaming as I sat by the fire pit. The stars above felt indifferent, but Grandpa's voice echoed, "Hold the line,
Girl."
I ramped up buys, hitting 90% as shares dipped from Derek's blunders. The board, distant in their city offices, ignored warning signs. But I prepared, legal briefs ready. Allies quietly courted among minor shareholders, old friends of Grandpa's from the Cattlemen's Association. The tension built like a storm over the plains, dark clouds gathering. Derek's arrogance peaked when he announced expansions without board approval, risking liens on the land. I warned him privately. This could bankrupt us legally.
He smirked.
Mind your place. The breaking point neared. In a heated call with suppliers, he blamed delays on incompetent staff, pointing at me indirectly. The emotional strain was raw. I felt isolated, undervalued in my own blood's legacy. But resolve hardened. This wasn't just business, it was family, heart, and justice under Western skies. The quarterly review hit like a sudden hailstorm, unexpected and damaging. Derek called it in the main barn converted to a conference space.
Ahí va el stack de Said.
Projectors humming. The whole crew was there, ranch hands in dusty jeans, execs in button-downs, even interns from the local AG college. I sat at the back, notebook open, sensing the trap. Derek strode in like a gunslinger, boots echoing on the concrete floor. Let's talk performance, he boomed, clicking through slides of grazing charts and profit margins. My name popped up third. Emily Harlan, he said, tone dripping condescension. You've been family forever, but results don't lie. He listed failures, projects I'd led that he sabotaged, like the ecotourism flop after he cut funding.
No innovation.
No drive. You're holding us back. Eyes darted my way. Tom the foreman shifted uneasily. Derek leaned on the podium. Effective today. You're let go. Clean out your desk. The room gasped. No warning. No HR process, violating Montana at-will employment laws that still required fair dealing for family firms. But he didn't care. I stood, heart racing but voice calm. Understood.
No please. No outbursts.
I walked out into the bright sunlight. The ranch sprawling before me, cattle lowing in the distance, mountain steadfast. In my truck, I gripped the wheel, breath shallow. The humiliation stung deep. A betrayal of blood and trust. Grandpa's envelope from years back sat in the glove box, his letter. The trusts. Time to turn the table, it urged. Tears came then, hot and silent, for the years poured in. The family fractures. But anger fueled action. That night, in my cabin lit by a single lamp, I called my lawyer, Sarah Klein in Billings. It's go time. We reviewed. My ownership via trusts was bulletproof. Filed with the Secretary of State. Derek's firing? Grounds for wrongful termination if tied to fraud. But we'd use shareholder rights first. Montana corporate code allowed majority owners to call emergency meetings with 48-hour notice. I drafted notices, emailing the board, 7 members, including distant relatives and investors.
Responses flooded in.
One investor, an old-timer from Wyoming, replied, "Jack always said you had the grit. Count me in." Derek remained oblivious, probably celebrating at the saloon. I built my case, exhibits of mismanagement, legal opinions on breaches. The detective work paid off, emails showing embezzlement, witnesses from staff willing to testify. It was humane. In a way, I aimed to save the ranch, not destroy lives. Family calls came next. My aunt wept. "Fix this. Emily. I promised reform." Sleepless nights followed, pacing under starlit skies. Emotions churning, betrayal, determination. A flicker of pity for Derek's blindness. He'd lost his way after the divorce, chasing power to fill voids. But actions had consequences. The meeting loomed. Derek learned via a leaked email, storming my empty office. His voicemails raged. "What game are you playing?" I didn't respond. Preparation intensified, rehearsals with Sarah, ensuring every move was legal.
No lo protes.
The West taught resilience. Ranches survived blizzards by planning. This was my storm. The shareholders' meeting convened in the ranch's main hall. Antler chandeliers casting warm light over the long oak table. Board members flew in, suits mixing with cowboy hats, tension thick as fog in the valleys. I arrived early, dressed simply in jeans and a blazer, folder in hand. Derek burst in last, face flushed. "This is bullshit," he snarled, slamming down. "Emily's bluffing." I stood at the head, voice even. As 90% owner via Harlan Trusts, I call this meeting to order. Gasps echoed. Derek laughed bitterly. "Prove it." Sarah presented documents, stock certificates, filings, all notarized. The board's lawyer nodded. Legitimate under state law. Derek paled.
Impossible.
Jack left control to the family. I met his eyes. He did to me. I outlined breaches, fraud, environmental violations,
Risquindia.
evidence projected, emails, audits. This isn't personal.
Derek.
It's correction. He exploded. "You sneaky bitch. I built this." Board members shifted. One seconded my motion to remove him. Votes tallied swiftly, unanimous. My majority sealing it. Derek stood, defeated. "You'll regret this." But his bluster cracked, revealing hurt. In that moment, humanity surfaced. I saw a man broken by his own hubris. Post-meeting, I addressed staff outside, under the sun. "We're rebuilding, with fairness." Applause rose. Derek packed alone, truck loaded with boxes. I approached. "Derek."
Wait.
He glared. "What?" Gloat.
No.
"Learn from this. Power's about stewardship, not ego." He paused, nodded faintly, driving off into the horizon. Months later, The ranch thrived. I appointed Tom as CEO, experienced, humble. Policies changed, fair wages, environmental compliance, family counseling for rifts. Profits rose sustainably, honoring Grandpa's vision. I stayed behind the scenes, owning but not ruling, focusing on community, scholarships for local kids, land conservation. Derek resurfaced via email, apologetic after therapy. I was blind. Thanks for the wake-up. We met at a neutral diner in Missoula. Emily. I screwed up, he admitted. Voice raw. Divorce broke me. I chase control. I nodded. We all falter. The lesson? Humility builds empires that last. He rejoined as a consultant, reformed, adding value without dominance. Family healed. Reunions mended. Laughter genuine. One evening, at Grandpa's grave on the hill, wildflowers blooming under clear skies, I whispered, "We did it with heart." The wind carried peace. In the West, revenge fades, redemption endures. The light lesson? Underestimate the quiet ones at your peril. They might just save you from yourself.